My name's Mark Helm, and we are in the Back to the Basics series of episodes about getting in or growing your self-storage business. So no matter when you're seeing this, this was recorded January 2022. My name is Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Quick Start Academy. And the Quick Start Academy houses a self-storage boot camp, and we have one coming up on February 4th and 5th. There will be more about it later on, and they're in this episode, and there'll be a link below. But if you need some support in getting in the self-storage business, this may be just the thing for you. But whether you're into boot camp or not, I want these back to the basic episodes to provide a lot of value for you. So this is the third episode, and in the first episode we talked about one of the main challenges that face us as small investors in getting in the self-storage business, and that's the valuation of self-storage today. It is very high. There's a lot of big money chasing self-storage, even Warren Buffett's in it, and so prices are high. So we talked about what the solution was to that. That was episode 322. And then in the next episode, once you have a solution for that, like what type of projects you're going to go after as small investors that the big money isn't chasing, then that creates the next challenge for us, which is how to analyze it. And we talked about the solution on that, how to look at a project, see what's missing, know what numbers are, where to find the numbers, but most importantly, how to analyze it. And that creates its own challenge. My experience in life is every problem I have today was the solution to another problem earlier for me or someone else. So I want to introduce you to Fred. Last week we talked about Jim. Today I want to introduce you to Fred. Now this isn't his real name, but Fred was somebody I met who was called and was asking questions about would the boot camp support him. Fred owned a residential real estate company, so he was familiar with real estate. He owned a few residential investment properties, but had long wanted to get into self-storage. He just couldn't figure out how, and when he made the decision to explore getting in it now, or when he did, he couldn't make sense of anything because the prices were so high. Everything he looked at was like break even or less. So Fred didn't have a lot of money. He had some of his money he had saved, but he wasn't, rolling in six figures of investment income. So his question was to me, is it realistic for me to think that a guy like me can get in the self-storage business? Fred had no construction experience, or very little. He'd done rehab on houses, but he'd never built a building or built anything. And self-storage had an extra zero on top of anything he'd ever looked at. So without a lot of experience, without a lot of money, but some real estate knowledge, his question to me was, is it realistic for a guy like me to think I can get in the self-storage business? Well, I didn't answer the question directly because what I could hear in Fred speaking was that Fred was scared. He was concerned. What he didn't want to do was take the money he'd saved over wherever he was in his career and lose it trying to get in something new. Very valid concern. I got from talking to Fred that Fred's biggest challenge wasn't the high prices, and it wasn't not knowing what to do, because he's smart and he can learn that pretty quick. I could tell Fred's biggest challenge was going to be his mindset, his mental attitude, thinking that he can really do it. So we had a conversation. I did tell him, yes, it's very possible for people like you to get into self-storage business. You got way more going on than I had when I got into the self-storage business. But it's going to take something today. It's not as easy as it used to be, and you're going to have to design a very specific strategy so you know exactly what you're going after, and just learn a few things. You can learn them. But yes, it is possible with the resources you have and the knowledge you have and the knowledge you're going to get in the self-storage business. So Fred tentatively went into the boot camp, and as in the first part of the morning on the day number one of the things that we do is that we design a business strategy. So as Fred worked through the process, what he got was that what he wanted to do was buy a small facility in an area close to him, a real small kind of mom and pop, do some type of value add play, and not use all of his money, but get in the business, learn it, and see if it's something he feels like he can do. Given Fred's mindset and Fred's resources, this was a fantastic strategy, I thought, for him. So that was what he went for. The thing I really acknowledge about him was that he took action instead of just studying it and not taking action because he didn't know everything there was to know. And within 6 months, Fred had purchased his first facility. So the challenges we've talked about so far, and getting back to the basics, are that prices are very high right now. There's a lot of money chasing real estate. So as a small investor, we got to know exactly what type of opportunities to go after. In essence, the solution is we go towards properties that most of the big guys aren't chasing. So we look at opportunities they're probably not looking at or looking at very closely. Then the second challenge is the numbers today, because the industry's changing fast, numbers are evolving, construction prices are high. What are realistic numbers that we can use in analyzing? Because we have to be able, as small investors, to predict not only what's there, if you're buying an existing facility, but what the income and expenses are going to be once you do your value add play. It's not difficult. In fact, storage is probably one of the easiest assets to do that with, or I should say it has the least moving parts of most any type of other real estate asset. So you can predict cash flows, if you know what you're doing, more accurately in self-storage than anything else. So Fred learned that. Wasn't difficult. Fred got that. The third challenge is how to create deal flow to look at, because with a lot of people looking at self-storage, even on the projects that the big guys aren't chasing, you've got to be able to recognize an opportunity. In other words, know what you're looking for, be able to see what's missing and run the numbers, and you got to move quick to control the property and invalidate your assumptions. So how do you create deal flow? Well, what Fred learned, there was basically in the boot camp, we talk about a three-pronged strategy that you're doing all at once. And one of the strategies involves connecting with owners directly, and we talk about how to do that, where to get the list, how to define an area. And Fred was able to contact directly with an owner, a mom and pop owner, who was in a position where he was having a life-changing event and he was considering selling it, and Fred happened to call at the right time and was able to control this property. Now what we find is when we utilize a three-pronged approach, it doesn't take long before your inbox in your email system, whatever you're using, is full of opportunities to look at. Yes, you're going to have to analyze a lot more of them today than you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But is creating wealth through self-storage worth analyzing more? Most of the people I work with are more than willing to do the work necessary to find the deal that they're after. Fred was unsure of himself. And it took him 6 months to find the right deal. But I think Fred will tell you it was well worth taking the action on it. I'm consistently amazed at the courage the people that I work with, how most of them, or many of them, the courage they display is they go after projects. In most cases for these people, it's a brand new endeavor. It's more money than they've ever worked with before. But they're willing to take action regardless of how they're feeling at the moment. Now, they're not being reckless because they have a plan, they know the numbers, and they have a structure in place that's going to validate their assumptions. But even then, it takes something to move into a new arena. It took Fred 6 months to do it. So Fred learned how to create deal flow to look at that was specific to the type of property that he created in his business strategy. So he solved the first problem of knowing what to go after. He solved the second problem of knowing how to analyze it. He solved the third problem of knowing how to create the deal flow. Once he controlled the property, that creates another challenge today for us small investors. That's like how to go quickly through the due diligence period and get the right team in place to support you through the due diligence period and putting your storage project into place. We'll talk about that in the next episode. My goal here is to create real value for you in this Back to Basics series. I'm also doing a lot of talking about the upcoming boot camp that we have. Now, I don't want you to feel like I'm always selling to you, but if you think getting the support and the training that something like the self-storage boot camp will offer, my coaching is explore it in the link below or call me. There's a link where you can call and talk to me. If it's not right for you, I'll tell you. And I'll also make suggestions of where I would go to get the support you need. The boot camp isn't right for everybody. I've told people they don't need it, or here's what you need, here's what's missing, here's the gap that I think I can hear that's keeping you from getting in. Because I've got to have a limited number of people in this boot camp for two reasons. One is I'm only going to have one in any trade area. And Fred's trade area was a state or a state and a half wide area, and no one else in his boot camp was in Fred's boot camp. Why? Well, I didn't want to create or have Fred have the experience of having to compete as he found deals and analyzed deals in the boot camp and in the follow-up to that there was somebody in the boot camp that he paid money for competing with him. And the other reason it's a limited number, 5 to 15, is going to be because there's a lot of one-on-one work. And if I have 50 people, especially in a virtual situation, there's really no way that people can get the individual support that I'm promising out of being in the boot camp. The other thing is there's a follow-up. So you're going to, in the boot camp, people learn the whole process. Now, there's no way you're going to know that process after one weekend, although you're going to have a workbook and you're going to have all the checklists and resources that we use in our business as we go through and get in the self-storage business. That will all be yours. But the follow-up and implementing what you've learned is what I have discovered is a real key. So there will be follow-ups, and people in your boot camp as well as people from other boot camps will be in those follow-ups, and you'll be able to talk with people who, wherever phase you're at getting into business, there'll be somebody on that call who has probably already been through it, and they can share with you what they've done. So it's a good community, it's a good way to get support, and it's a good way to get the training and be able to go refer back to it when you need it. Like with Fred, it was 6 months, 5-6 months before he was in his due diligence period. But he had his workbook and he had that group that could support him as he went through the due diligence period. So if you've watched this far, odds are they're probably interested. See the link below to find out more or schedule a call with me. It's February 4th and 5th. If you're watching this after February 4th and 5th, I have an on-demand, probably have another one coming up or an on-demand version of it. You can click below and find out more about that as well. So thank you very much, and I hope you're getting real value out of this Back to the Basics series. I'll see you next week.